30 days ago, my home was quietly falling apart. And so, if I'm honest, was I. Not in a dramatic way. There was no single disaster. It was smaller than that, and somehow worse for being small. It was the sink that always had dishes in it. The counter I could never quite see. The pile of mail that migrated from surface to surface but never actually got dealt with. The Saturdays I lost, again and again, to cleaning a house that would be a mess again by Wednesday. And underneath all of it, this low, constant hum of guilt. The feeling that I was always one step behind my own life, and that no matter how hard I tried, I could never quite catch up. I'd tried everything. The cleaning schedules, the organizing videos, the big motivated Sunday overhauls that left me exhausted and changed nothing by the following weekend. And every time it fell apart, I came to the same conclusion. The problem was me. I just wasn't disciplined enough. I wasn't the kind of person who could keep a calm, clean home. Then I stumbled onto something that made me question that entirely. I kept reading that Japanese homes, often smaller than mine, lived in by people just as busy, tend to stay effortlessly clean and calm without the exhausting weekend battles. Not through working harder, through a completely different set of rules about how you live in a space. And the claim that stopped me cold was this, that these rules don't just change your house, they change you. I didn't believe it, but I was tired enough to try anything, so I picked a set of Japanese home rules and I committed to following all of them, every day, for 30 days, no skipping, no negotiating. This is what actually happened, and I'll be honest with you, some of it surprised me, some of it was harder than I expected, and one thing about day 19 genuinely caught me off guard. Let's start at the beginning. The rules? First, let me tell you exactly what I committed to, so you know the experiment was real. I chose 7 rules, drawn from how Japanese homes are traditionally kept. 1. Shoes come off at the door, always, no exceptions. 2. The 2-minute rule. If something takes under 2 minutes, I do it immediately, not later. 3. A short reset every morning before I leave, so the house starts from clean. 4. Clean as I cook and reset the kitchen fully after every meal. 5. Everything gets a designated home and goes back to it. 6. Dry the kitchen sink every night before bed. And 7. For every new thing that came into the house, one old thing had to leave. 7 rules, 30 days, simple on paper. I figured I'd be bored by day 3. I was not bored by day 3. I was struggling. Week 1, harder than it looked. The first few days humbled me fast, and not for the reason I expected. The rules themselves were easy to understand. The hard part was how unnatural they felt. I had spent my entire adult life setting things down. For now. Keys on the table, bag on the chair, cup on the counter, jacket wherever. I never once thought of it as a habit. It was just how I moved through my own home. And suddenly I was asking myself to do the opposite. Dozens of times a day, and my body fought it every single time. The shoes were the first battle. I have walked into my home with my shoes on for my entire life. On day 1, I took them off and immediately walked back in with them on out of pure habit, 3 separate times before it started to stick. It felt fussy. It felt like a rule for someone else's house, not mine. But here's the first thing that surprised me, and it happened faster than I thought it would. By about day 4, my floors stayed clean. Not, I mopped them clean, just clean, on their own, for days. I realized I'd spent years cleaning dirt off my floors that I had personally walked in on my own shoes. I wasn't cleaning a mess, I'd been manufacturing the mess, and then cleaning it. That reframe hit me harder than it should have. The 2-minute rule was the one that exposed me, because once I started actually doing it, I realized how many 2-minute things I'd been postponing every single day. A rinse here, a wipe there, a thing put away. Tiny, tiny tasks. And I'd been deferring nearly all of them, letting them pile silently into the exact overwhelming mess I dreaded on weekends. My Saturday disaster, I started to understand, wasn't one big event. It was 1,000 2-minute things I'd said later to. By the end of week 1, I won't pretend I felt transformed. I felt tired, a little resentful, and very aware of how many small postponements my life had quietly been built on. But something small had shifted. The sink was empty more often than not. And once, just once, I walked into my kitchen in the morning and it was already clean. And I stood there for a second, genuinely not sure how that had happened. Week 2, the day it started working on its own. Week 2 is when the strange part began. The rules started doing something I didn't do consciously. Around day 9 or 10, I noticed I wasn't deciding to follow the rules anymore. I was just doing them. I'd finish a coffee and my hand would rinse the cup before my brain had weighed in. I'd take off my jacket and it went to the hook without a debate. The resistance I'd fought all through week 1 was quietly fading, and the actions were becoming automatic. Nobody warns you about this part, that the hardest thing about a habit is the first week, and that if you can survive it, the habit starts carrying itself. The morning reset became my favorite rule, which shocked me, because on day 1, it had felt like a chore I resented. 5 minutes, make the bed, open a window, wipe the counter, swipe the bathroom sink. But here's what I hadn't anticipated. It wasn't the clean house that got me. It was walking out the door knowing the house was handled, and then coming home that evening, tired and being met not by a list of undone tasks, but by a space that felt like it was on my side. I hadn't realized how much low-grade stress my messy home had been quietly generating until it stopped. The kitchen rule taught me something almost embarrassing. For years, I'd let the kitchen sit in post-dinner chaos until morning, or until the next meal. And I'd always assumed the reason morning cleanup was so miserable was just that I hated cleaning. It wasn't. It was that the mess had hardened. Sauce that wipes off a plate in 10 seconds becomes cement in 2 hours. Grease that lifts off a warm stovetop becomes a baked-on film by the next day. I'd been making every kitchen task 10 times harder by waiting, and I never knew, because I'd never once done it the other way. Cleaning as I cooked, the kitchen was never a disaster to begin with. By the end of week 2, the change in my house was obvious, but I want to tell you about day 19, because that's when the change stopped being about the house at all. Day 19, the part I didn't expect. I keep coming back to day 19, because it's the day that made me understand this was never really about cleaning. It was an ordinary evening, nothing special. I'd had a genuinely rough day, the kind where you come home wrung out and a little defeated. And on a day like that, my old self would have walked into a cluttered house, felt the weight of it land on top of an already heavy day, and sunk into the couch under all of it. Instead, I walked into a home that was calm. Clean counters, clear floors, a space that felt quiet and ordered and safe. And I felt my shoulders physically drop. I stood in my own kitchen, and for the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt at rest in my own home. Not, I should clean. Not, I'm behind. Just, peace. And here's the thought that actually stopped me. I realized the house hadn't gotten calm because I'd worked harder. It had gotten calm because I'd spent 19 days doing small things before they became big things. And somewhere in there, without noticing, I'd started doing the same thing with the rest of my life. I was replying to the message instead of letting it sit, handling the small task instead of dreading it into a big one. The rules had escaped the house. They'd become a way of moving through everything. That was the moment I understood what that claim had meant. The one I hadn't believed. These rules don't just change your house, they change you. I thought that was marketing. On day 19, standing in my quiet kitchen after a terrible day, I understood it was just true. Week 3, the rule I almost quit. I want to be honest, because a transformation story where everything goes perfectly is a lie, and you'd be right not to trust it. Week 3 is where I almost quit one of the rules, and it was the one that had nothing to do with cleaning. The one in, one out rule. Every time something new came into the house, something old had to leave. This one got uncomfortable in a way the others didn't, because it forced me to actually look at how much I owned and to confront the strange grip my possessions had on me. I found myself standing in a closet holding something I hadn't used in 3 years, feeling genuinely anxious about letting it go. Not because I needed it, I clearly didn't, but because getting rid of it felt like admitting something, that I'd wasted the money, or that some version of my life I'd imagined was never going to happen. I nearly abandoned the rule. It was bringing up more than I'd signed up for, but I pushed through, and what I found on the other side surprised me. Every object I let go of made the house lighter, and made me lighter too. I started to understand that my clutter wasn't neutral. Every extra thing I owned was a tiny obligation, something to clean around, store, organize, and quietly feel guilty about. Owning less didn't feel like loss. By the end of the week, it felt like breathing room I hadn't known I was missing. There's a Japanese idea underneath this, the sense that you should keep only what you genuinely need or love, and release the rest with gratitude for the purpose it served. I'd read that sentence before and found it a bit precious. Living it for a week, I finally got it. The house had less in it, and there was, suddenly, so much less to clean. The rule I almost quit turned out to be the one that made every other rule easier. Week 4, the new normal. By week 4, the experiment stopped feeling like an experiment. The rules weren't rules anymore. They were just how I lived. I wasn't white-knuckling anything. I wasn't checking a list, taking my shoes off, resetting in the morning, handling the 2-minute things, drying the sink at night. All of it had dissolved into the background of my days, automatic and effortless. The thing I'd spent a lifetime believing I wasn't capable of, keeping a calm, clean home without a constant battle, was just happening, and it barely cost me any effort at all. I did the math one evening, and it stunned me. All these rules together cost me maybe 15 minutes a day? 15 minutes? And in exchange, the 4-hour Saturday cleaning session, the one that had haunted my weekends for years, was simply gone. Not conquered, gone. There was nothing left for it to clean, because nothing was ever allowed to build up. I'd traded a few unnoticed minutes a day for the return of my entire weekend. And for something I hadn't even known to want. A home that didn't ask anything of me every time I walked through it. But the house was honestly the smaller change. The bigger one was in me. 30 days earlier, I'd believed I was just a messy, undisciplined person, that a calm home belonged to other people wired differently than me. That belief was gone. I understood now that I'd never had a discipline problem. I'd had a systems problem. I'd been trying to fight mess after it won, with willpower, over and over, and losing, and blaming myself for losing. The Japanese rules didn't make me more disciplined. They made discipline unnecessary by stopping the mess before it ever started, so there was no battle left to lose. And the calm had spread everywhere. I was less anxious. I procrastinated less, on everything, not just cleaning. I felt for the first time in years like I was actually keeping up with my own life, instead of drowning a step behind it. My home had become a place of rest, and somehow, so had my head. What I actually learned? So after 30 days, here's what I'd tell you. The real lessons underneath the specific rules. The first is that it was never about cleaning harder. Every single rule that worked was a form of prevention, not correction. Shoes off, so dirt never enters. The 2-minute rule, so mess never accumulates. Cleaning as I cook, so nothing hardens. Drying the sink, so odor never forms. I'd spent my whole life fighting messes that had already happened. The entire secret was to stop them from happening at all. And that turned out to cost a tiny fraction of the effort. The second is that the mess was never the real problem, and neither was I. The real problem was 1,000 tiny postponements, a lifetime of "I'll deal with it later," quietly stacking into the overwhelm I blamed myself for. Change the postponement, and the overwhelm has nothing to build from. The third is the one I didn't see coming. Your home is not separate from you. The state of the space you live in and the state of the mind you carry are connected in a way I'd never taken seriously. When my home was chaotic, some part of me was always braced, always behind, always vaguely guilty. When my home became calm, I became calm. I don't fully understand the mechanism. I just know it's real, because I lived it. And the fourth, the most freeing of all, you are almost certainly not too messy, too lazy, or too undisciplined to have a calm, clean home. You've just been using a model that guarantees failure, the exhausting, reactive, willpower-based battle that was never going to work for anyone. It's not a you problem, it's a method problem. And the method can change. Would I keep going? People always ask, at the end of a 30-day experiment, whether you go back to how things were. I can't. That's the honest answer. I couldn't go back if I tried, because the rules aren't something I'm doing anymore. They're just who I am now. My hand rinses the cup on its own. My shoes come off without a thought. The sink gets dried every night, and my mornings begin in a home that's already at peace. It stopped being an experiment somewhere around week 2 and just became my life. If you're where I was 30 days ago, tired of the battle, convinced the problem is you, losing your weekends to a house that never stays clean, I want to tell you the one thing I most needed to hear back then. You don't have to do all of this at once. That's the trap I'd fallen into for years. The big motivated all-at-once overhaul that always collapses. Don't do that. Pick one rule. Just one. Maybe it's taking your shoes off at the door. Maybe it's drying the sink tonight. Do that single thing every day until it becomes automatic. And then, only then, add the next. That's how 30 days quietly turned into a different home and a different me. Not through one heroic effort, through one small thing, done consistently, until it became who I was. So here's my question for you, and I genuinely want to know, which one rule are you going to start with tonight? Tell me in the comments, 1 through 7, or just describe it, because saying it out loud is the first real step, and I read every single one. And if any part of my 30 days felt familiar, if you're tired in the exact way I was tired, share this with one person you know who's fighting the same quiet battle with their own home. It might be the thing that finally makes them believe it isn't their fault. 30 days ago, I thought I was the problem. It turned out I just needed a different way to live. Maybe you do too. I'll see you in the next one.